Stephen Mansfield, New York Times bestselling author and speaker.
Doug Tenaple, I'm the creator of Earthworm Jim.
Tweet groups.
I'm Victor Dweck. Joseph Carter, I'm the Mink Man.
This is Dave Baker from Forged in Fire.
This is Leanne Morgan. I'm a comedian, and this is why you should never
Don't ever.
Not ever.
Don't waste your time.
Oh, you really should.
listen to those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey, welcome back
Welcome
to the Reverend and the Reprobate.
and the Reverend.
You said it wrong.
Oh, did I?
You did. I think that was on purpose.
I just said what everyone's feeling.
I'm Lucas Pinckard. I am the pastor at First Baptist Church Lake Dallas. I will be the Reverend today. And alongside me is Heather's sidekick and PIC, Mr.
What does PIC mean?
Partner in crime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reprobate, Dan
Yeah.
Gibson.
Yeah.
I'm also handsome and funny and very intelligent.
Who are you trying to convince?
I don't know.
Well, we were both
I
trying
have part
to
of this
convince.
persona where I just act like an idiot over here.
So I think we were both trying to convince today's guest that we were one or all of those things. Today we've got back on the show. It's our first returning guest.
So cool.
Is New York Times best-selling author of The Faith of George W. Bush. He's an author of over 20 books. Today we're going to be talking to him specifically about a book that he wrote a couple of years ago called The Miracle of the Kurds, about the people who live in northern Iraq or in Kurdistan.
Fascinating story.
Absolutely incredible. If you haven't read the book, I really would encourage you to pick this up. They are one of the most pro-Western people groups in the Middle East, and on top of that, they are one of the people groups that the United States has sent the most missionaries to in trying to reach and to give aid to, and just Stephen has
And their roots, their history, too.
it's incredible. But he's got so much information about it because I think he says in the interview he's made like 40 trips.
Yeah.
Nearly 40 trips, and he outlines them in the books. He talks a little bit about it in this interview of two in particular.
He was in a firefight.
Where he ends up in the middle of a gunfight, and in the book he says, I was standing up, and then I thought, oh my gosh, you idiot, duck. Like he's there while bullets are whizzing past him. He's got to take and duck for cover. He talks a little bit about that story. He answers our 5 questions for controlled rowdiness this week, which some of them were completely tailored for him, very Mansfield inspired in the way that we thought about and wrote them. I'm just blown away that we got him on initially, but that he came back on to talk to us specifically about this was really cool. A topic that's really near and dear to your heart because you've got some firsthand experience.
Yeah, I grew up with
this.
it, not really fully understanding, but I was around a lot of the Kurds when they escaped Iraq and needed shelter and needed to learn how to make money and provide for their families in a new foreign country. And
yeah, if I remember correctly, the church you grew up in taught people how
Brookhaven
to
Church.
sew.
Yep.
And there were just some basic, fundamental skills that you guys were teaching them at Brookhaven
And
College.
actually, they started the first. I believe this is accurate, but it was the first Kurdish Baptist church there in the basement of the church where they had a bunch of the displaced Kurds, and at their year anniversary of they celebrated by making their national foods, and then they did some of their national dances, and it was really cool.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. So we talked to him about that, sort of your experience with that, where that intersects. But we also talked to him about the Peshmerga, and we
almost get in trouble.
Oh man, we step right almost in it.
See, I don't remember doing that, but we'll find out.
Yeah. So you guys check it out. Stephen Mansfield.
Please like and subscribe.
Yeah. Ding the bell, get notifications.
If you're on Facebook, you can follow the page. If you're on YouTube, you can subscribe and ding the bell, and we'll stop talking about that now. Stephen Mansfield.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for listening to The Reverend and the Reprobate. We've got our first return guest, the man of manliness himself.
Yeah, he's a man's man,
He's
and
the
there's
man's
no
man.
pun intended there.
No, it is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Stephen Mansfield. How are you doing today, Stephen?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. Wow, you must have. There must be something good that happened if you're having me back so soon. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time that we talked, both of us were so scared that we wore suits. So we feel much better this time.
Yeah, we did talk about how it was the most intellectually intimidating interview that we had done to date, and I still think that that's the case. But now I feel like we're friends, and if we're not, then I'm sure you will let us know here shortly. So
look, I worked pretty hard to get my PhD, and I have to show it off every so often.
There you go.
So
Well done.
That's probably what I was doing.
Well, that's so. I've got to share a big victory with you before we get into the crux of our interview. Last time we were talking about your new book, Men on Fire, and how to build community between men. We referenced Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, which we have a lot of our students go through, and then how to build your band of brothers. Well, since that conversation, I was able to take some of that stuff with our men's group leaders, and we have been getting together one Friday night a month. We've been renting out a primitive campsite that's over in our neighborhood or right outside of it by the lake that we live close to, and just having a campfire with no agenda, everybody hanging out, and it has been the best men's ministry that we have ever had. And so thank you so much for not just the writings that you did, but also for your investment in men. And we talked a lot about controlled rowdiness and indirect relationships, and I got to tell you, it's been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for that, because it's really helped our men's ministry a ton.
Oh, man, that means the world to me. Thank you for telling me that. And tell you guys hello for me.
Will do.
Yeah, we'll do. You may not remember, but you literally said, Pastor, get your men, listen to me, get your men out of the fellowship hall.
Yep. Don't sit them across from each other.
Do something else. Go play basketball. Go relate indirectly, and so that's what we did, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so thanks very much for that. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about your book, The Miracle of the Kurds, and I want to start with something that you say, because I think it's a great segue. You use it in the first chapter of your book. Here's a picture of the book for everybody that wants to go check it out. I first got exposure to the Kurdish people. Danley's got a great story about it, but I got it when I was listening back to some of the backlog of your podcast. And you talk in the Stephen Mansfield podcast, you talk about this phrase that was used, and this is what really piqued my interest. And you mentioned in the first chapter of the book that you asked for jam, and the guy says, "We have jam, but there is no jam." And as you told that story on your podcast, and as you read through the first chapters of the book, you see that this is something that had become ingrained in their society, and something that was a joke but became very heartbreaking to you over the course of the days that you were there at this conference. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and what your relationship with the Kurdish people has been like?
Sure, happy to. Thanks for asking. I love the Kurdish people. They are the largest people group in the world without their own homeland. 35 to 40 million people worldwide without their own homeland. And as you know, the Iraqi Kurds came under horrible persecution by Saddam Hussein. And at that time, the Kurds began to pour into Nashville, which is one of the places that I live now, and the only place I lived back then. So I was part of a large church, and we began to meet them at the airport, help them get settled, teach them English, teach them how to drive, teach them how to get jobs, etc. And I became very, very close to them. They began to beg for us to go to their homeland and help those who were left behind, who were just suffering horribly. So over the next couple of decades, I've probably made 25, 30 trips to Iraqi Kurdistan, also to see Kurds in Turkey and other countries, and really fallen in love with them. But this dynamic, this humorous statement that you described, we have jam, but we have no jam, is sort of the way the Kurds think, because they have lived in sort of this island of isolation and persecution, protected by no-fly zones, double embargoes, all kinds of things that are, kind of complex politics and international affairs. But the bottom line is they tend to think in terms of, we have electricity, but we don't really always have electricity. We have jam, but we have no jam. They sort of apologize for the circumstances there when you're visiting from other places, because they're very, very hospitable people. And so I have been working with them for years. I've testified before Congress, written a book, done a TED Talk, advise them, work with them a bit, and just believe that they are the way we want the Middle East to go. They are pro-West. Most of them are pro-Israel, believe it or not, even though they're a 97% Muslim people.
Wow.
They're pro-democracy. I actually did a kind of a PBS miniseries on democracy on Kurdish television in Iraq. And that would have at least been aired in Saddam's house. He obviously didn't watch it.
Right.
But the point is that this is why I've worked with the Kurds so extensively, and it's been unbelievably rewarding. And when they're not damaged by pandemic, damaged by economic upheaval, damaged by war, they are people who really rise, really do amazing things. And I'm planning to help them for the rest of my life and see if we can't see a Kurdish nation be born in our time.
That would be fantastic.
That'd be incredible.
So I have a little bit of you mentioned that had to have been what in the 90s, the early 90s that they came to Nashville. Or
Yes.
So
exactly.
we had the same thing here in Dallas at Brookhaven Church. That was where I was going. That was my home church, my family church, and we had several leaders of the Kurds come because the heads of the president of the Texas Baptist Men went to that church, and they had gone to Iraq bringing blankets and food, and they came over wanting to meet these people and find out why they had helped them, because as they said, which I found this quote fascinating, they had told them that the Kurds have no friends except the mountains.
Yes.
Which is a horrifying thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a standard statement of the Kurds. They've been betrayed so much in history, and they come from those amazing mountains in their area that they often say, we have no friends but the mountains. Only the mountains protect us. Only the mountains provide for us. And so, those of us who work with them now start to say to them, you've got better friends than the mountains. Come on. If I meet with a bunch of college kids, I'll joke around, and if they say anything about Kurds being abandoned, I'll go, yeah, here we go again. No friends but the mountains. I'll say, I'm a better friend than a mountain. And they like to laugh and have fun, and they're starting to warm up to the fact they've got friends in the world, but they are betrayed often. And I don't mean to get political, but even recently, Donald Trump yanked the rug out from under them. Again, I'm not being political. I'm just saying that's how recently the U.S. has has betrayed them. And I was on the ground, by the way, there when that happened, and it was horrible. People were being killed. I was in danger. Not that I'm the big deal. Kurds were having to flee. It was terrible. And it was basically because a bunch of people didn't really understand what the situation of the Kurds was. So it's an ongoing phenomenon for them, but they really appreciate all of their friends, but especially their American friends who hang in there with them. So
you said that not a lot of people understand what the situation was. If you can give, just kind of a synopsis for our listeners of what the situation is that they're in. I mean, you mentioned that they're the largest people group without a country. If anybody has seen your TED Talk, they know not just how passionate you are about it, but also that the women especially were one of the ones that were warding off ISIS. So what is the situation that the Kurds are in?
Well, let me summarize about 100 years of history in about 30 seconds. After World War II, if you've seen I'm not Dr. Zhivago, but Lawrence Arabia, you know that after World War I, actually, there were a bunch of international conferences to decide how to carve up the Middle East. The Kurds were put in the northern part of Iraq, which was a new nation. It's not one of the ancient nations like Egypt or something.
Right.
They were put in the northern part of Iraq to provide a buffer between Turkey and the Iraqi government. And as a result, they have been used as a buffer ever since. They are despised by many of the Middle Eastern nations. They are people who embrace Islam, but lightly. They're moderate Muslims, not extremists. They don't like the Arabization that happens in Islam. So they've been despised. And the Turks, Turkey, not all Turks, but Turkey absolutely despises them. For many years, outlawed their language, their schools, their education, their poetry, their dances, everything. And so now they are all throughout the world, of course, but right there in Iraqi Kurdistan, which is the main hub of Kurds in the Middle East, they are basically besieged by Turkey, which calls them Mountain Turks. They believe that all Kurds ought to be part of Turkey. They are opposed by the Iraqi government many times because they're desiring independence and kind of a federalist system, and they are rejecting the Arabization of the Saudis. So you can understand they're kind of coming our way, so to speak. But as a result, they are in tension with a lot of folks in the Middle East, and of course that's just what's going on now. During the Saddam years, they were gassed. There was a city called Halabja where Saddam dropped mustard gas and 10,000 people died. I mean, there really are horrible moments in Kurdish history. And again, it's often the West providing the gas, often the West that's not providing help. So things really began to change when the Western allies began to create a no-fly zone in the early 90s. And that's when the Kurds began to emerge and began to thrive. And they're just doing amazing things, So right now, they are squeezed between the government of Iraq, the southern part of Iraq, and the Turks. And they are battling for their lives in Syria, because there are many Kurds in Syria as well.
Can you tell me a little bit? You mentioned you went 40 times or so over there during the in '88 when I'm assuming it started in '88 with Saddam bombing. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like? You know, you mentioned there was a lot of death recently, but you were there during that time too. Like, what did you see? Where were you?
We initially would fly into Istanbul, then take Turkish Air across to Diyarbakir, which is an eastern city in Turkey, and then we would drive 5 hours across the border into Iraq. That got very, very dangerous. I got stuck with a bunch of other men, got stuck in a firefight once when Kurdish guerrillas and Turkish army got into conflict. Then we would fly into, believe it or not, this is before the Civil War, we fly into Damascus, and we'd get in a van and drive for 9 hours across the Syrian desert.
Wow.
And then we get in a boat and go across the Euphrates. And so then we'd be on the other side. So it was long, arduous, difficult, and somewhat dangerous travel. But once we got into Iraq, once we got into the KRG, the Kurdish Regional Government is what it's called, KRG, we were very, very welcomed. I mean, they were fighting a war on their southern border. It wasn't uncommon at all for us to go to hospitals and see our friends who had been gassed or go to their funerals and so on. It was very, very difficult. I stood on a hill just outside of Mosul, which is right near ancient Nineveh of the Bible, and looked down on Saddam's troops camped all around the area. This was just 20 miles from where I was staying in a what we laughingly refer to as a hotel. So all of that to say that it was sweet, it was warm, but it was dangerous. And the Kurds would just hug us and welcome us and weep because we helped them. They just couldn't believe Americans were risking their lives to get there. And the various ministries and organizations I was working with did quite a bit. Saddam wouldn't allow medical help into that part of the world. So we would literally arrange to backpack computers. And back then you used floppy disks and CD drives and so on to get a digital medical library into that part of the world so the doctors wouldn't fall too far behind the medical research. So we take them across I wouldn't, by the way. We'd get them across the mountains by mule, and then we'd set it up in a building inside that we had erected, et cetera. We built houses, we started schools, we consulted with the government, we lobbied the U.S. Government, et cetera. One time I even went there with a friend to the Vatican to get some religious issues straightened out. So it's been exciting, it's been interesting, it's been challenging, it's been heartbreaking. But the more you hang out with the Kurds, the more beautiful it is. And it really started back during the days that they were in horrible conflict and threatened with extermination, really, in the KRG.
One of the things that in recent years has become sort of a fun topic, even as dangerous as it is the Peshmerga. And there are a lot of young Western men that have discovered the Peshmerga, and that they are
beautiful, dangerous girls.
Yeah, they're
not just girls. Right?
Yeah, but they're every young guy's, kind of like, no, there's beautiful, dangerous women that are running off a lot of the ISIS threat that's coming from Syria. I know you've had some experience with them. Talk to us a little bit about the Peshmerga.
Well, the Peshmerga is the Kurdish name for their guerrilla forces, and it means those who face death. And I love the Peshmerga. Man, I'll tell you what, they know how to fight. They teach martial law is part of Kurdish culture, and so the Kurds in the mountains, for example, teach their kids to shoot weapons, and then they shoot them on one foot, and then the other foot, and then they shoot hanging from a tree, and that's why they're such amazing fighters. The Kurds were the bodyguards of the czars, and just are known to be amazing fighters. Well, the Kurds, as I say, are not traditional hardcore conservative Muslims. They're moderates. And one of the areas that they're moderate in has to do with women. They have women warriors. They have women generals. They have women on their Supreme Court. This is unbelievable for a 97% Muslim country or people group. So some of the best snipers in the Peshmerga are women. And because they're young women and they're tech savvy, some of them have got Twitter accounts. And Western men follow them. and follow what they do. And occasionally these women will do a video or something like that. And so you have a whole bunch of Western men cheering on these female, basically snipers, assassins in the Peshmerga. And what's interesting is that back during the days of fighting ISIS, we still are a little bit, but especially back during the days when it was heavy, ISIS believed that if you were killed by a woman, that you would not go into paradise. And so that only caused the Kurds to increase the number of women who were snipers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure there was a long sign-up list full of women like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
I can get away with saying this because I'm a father to a lot of Kurdish people. I'm old enough to be a father. I'm 62. I don't mind you knowing. And so I can say this when I wouldn't recommend most Western men say it, but Kurdish women are, for the most part, are very beautiful women.
Yeah.
They're very beautiful. And again, I say that as a father to them. If any Kurds watching, they know that I mean this with nothing but respect, because traditionally in that part of the world, a Western man, any visiting man, wouldn't speak of the beauty of a woman.
Right.
But I'm a father. My wife and I are, friends with many Kurds, and I think they respect me. So you guys shouldn't say it. I think I can get away with saying it.
We'll edit it out.
Yeah, we'll defer to you on that.
When we get to this part where we're editing it, we'll just add a glove punching me in the face or something.
Are we allowed to agree? Would that be?
We could
agree.
You could agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just don't want to be seen to be inappropriate. You understand?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I have no problem saying to all the Kurdish world that Kurdish women are beautiful. And my wife and I agree on that. And I'm not just saying that out of any kind of desire.
Yeah.
And so some of these women who can take a man out at a mile off, I mean, literally put a bullet through his brain a mile off, are stunningly beautiful. And so it becomes rather humorous that Western men, Kurdish men, everybody's following them and cheering them on. But I often go on one of their accounts where I'm very careful about this and say, yeah, I don't think it's the marksmanship that's got you guys attracted here, and everybody will laugh. But it's a pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's some dumb Americans.
Pretty amazing thing. Exactly.
They're going,
exactly.
Are you on TikTok? Shut up. She's defending her country.
There have been some marriage
dummies.
proposals that have happened via Twitter on some of these accounts that I've seen. It's like, please marry me. And I'm like, that is not.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to go ask her dad for her hand in marriage. I promise you.
What if they made the trip? Would that show respect?
Doubtful.
Yeah, it would show respect. But I'll tell you what, this is all family over there.
Right.
So it's to put it humorously, it's a little bit like the mafia. You don't ask for a daughter's hand in marriage, and she says yes. She brings 78 of her favorite relatives, most of whom are armed, to the meeting. And what I think is important for us to remember is that the Kurds have a real love of beauty. It's pretty amazing. They don't just have a toaster. They have a toaster covered in a cozy that is absolutely gorgeous. They decorate their homes with flowers. Unbelievable. There was some excavation done recently of ancient Kurdish sites, and it was obvious that flowers had been used at graves, and there was great art and all that kind of thing. And all of this was just done at the village level. This wasn't, we're not talking about the Vatican here in terms of sophistication. And that's one of the things I love about the Kurds is how much they love beauty. And so as a result, there's an art of feminine beauty as well that I think is rare in the West and that men are drawn to. And it's all fun to watch and laugh at.
So we want to move on and get into a little bit of, how we are helping or not helping the Kurds. Before we do, you mentioned going to the Vatican to set them straight on a few things. Did you set the Pope straight on a few things?
No, I don't have the kind of weight. No, here's what the deal was. I'm going to speak in broad terms, because we were there. My primary people helping the Kurds at that time were Protestant Christians from America. Just the reality. Organizations. I didn't start any of them, by the way. I was just there to help. But those who were brave and courageous and heroic people from the States had started organizations to help. Well, an old school bishop in the Chaldean church had, you can imagine what he had seen on television. You can imagine what he had heard. You can imagine the rumors. And he began to oppose the Protestant evangelicals trying to help in a way that got dangerous for them. It wouldn't take much to say these people are heretics before, you're up for being shot.
Right.
And so the best way to deal with this was not to try to deal with it on the ground, because that was tense and dangerous, but to go speak to those who were his upline at the Vatican. And they welcomed us, and we sat with cardinals, and the thing was dealt with very graciously. So, in my opinion, this is the way it ought to be done, rather than coming back and griping about the Catholic Church, which I don't, by the way. I'm very grateful for a lot of their influence in the world. We talked to the upline, we explained the situation, and within a few weeks, it was dealt with very, very graciously. And there was a new bishop put in place, and he would actually attend the baptism services of the evangelicals and come to our meals and so on. And so it was a wonderful modeling in front of the Muslim world of Christian unity. So that's that story.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy to happen in that area when you think about all the infighting and stuff that's happened there, especially with the Abrahamic religions in particular. When we look at Kurdistan, and we'll use this as our segue, or Northern Iraq, they prefer that it be called Kurdistan because that's what they're hoping for. How does the change in regime affect what's going on, not just in the Middle East as a whole, but specifically with this people group? Because a lot of the foreign policy will be changing over the next few months. What do you see as the future for these people?
You're talking about the change of regime in the U.S.
The US.
Yes, sir.
The
Yeah. The change of regime here.
Even though I am right of center, not hard right, but just right of center, the fact is, and there are some things that Mr. Biden is doing and his administration is already doing that concern me deeply. The fact is that they are actually going to be better for the Kurds than the previous administration. In Ambassador Bolton's book, he quotes Donald Trump as saying, "I don't like the Kurds. They're losers. They always lose in history. All through history, they've been losing." Now, that's his quote. I wasn't there. I don't know.
Sure.
But that seems to have been the approach.
What a dumb thing to say.
In fact, one of the people I admire the most is General Mattis. Mad Dog Mattis is one of my heroes. And he resigned from the administration over this issue, over the fact that Trump got up one morning and yanked the U.S. troops that were keeping Turkish troops restrained and from devastating Syrian Kurds. Again, that's exactly when I was on the ground. I was there that morning.
Wow.
And it ended up doing lots of media to try to explain to the Kurdish world that the U.S. wasn't abandoning them, but this was a president who didn't know what he was doing. I had to speak in those terms, although I try not to when I'm overseas to speak ill of the U.S.
Sure.
So all of that to say, the Trump administration was not good for the Kurds. Not at all. The Obama administration was. I mean, I know I'm sounding like a Democrat, and I'm not. I'm just saying the Obama administration did a number of things to support the Kurds, and even supplied them when there were, treaties against it and so on. We actually broke our treaties with the Iraqi government so we could help the Kurds. That's what the Obama administration did.
Wow.
Well, Joe Biden has a lot of experience with the Kurds, a lot of experience in Iraq. He's appointing pro-Kurdish foreign policy people. So I think that we will see a much wiser, a much more stable policy with the KRG. The Kurds are beyond excited that it's Joe Biden who's in office. They don't mean that from the standpoint of domestic politics or domestic policies. That's not their stuff. They're saying in terms of foreign policy, Joe Biden, I believe, has made almost as many trips to Iraq as I have, somewhere in the 30-40 range, which is stunning for an American politician. So he's knowledgeable. He's pro-Kurd. So is Schumer, by the way, who's now the lead man in the Senate. And so I think we're going to see better policies for the Kurds anyway coming out of this administration than any others. Now, some folks listening right now are thinking, well, Mansfield's gone leftist. No, I haven't. I'm just talking about this one issue I happen to know a little bit about. And there's no question the Biden administration is going to be better than the Trump administration. There hasn't been a Republican administration as good for the Kurds since George W. Bush. And both of the Obama administration and the Biden administration will do very, very well for the Kurds.
What do you think it will take to see the country of Kurdistan come to be?
It's going to be a tough sell. It's going to take a while. They're going to have to get out of their current doldrums. They've been devastated by the pandemic. They were just starting to rise when a combination of war from the north and the pandemic struck. But when the Kurds have a little bit of peace, they really rise. They really welcome foreign investment. I mean, you can't believe how they're developing. So give them a little time. They'll get strong. They'll get stable. They have a lot of Western-educated statesmen, and so when they had some periods of peace, they immediately, became hooked to their stock exchange, to the NASDAQ, and did all kinds of very smart things, had smart foreign investment laws. Once they get stable, once they get development going, I think that a Kurdish homeland is going to be possible. The problem is, think about this now, it's going to be carved out of Turkey, Syria, maybe Jordan, probably Iraq, and definitely Iran.
Yeah.
So, it's like
that's
me
going to be
saying,
a tough sell.
Yeah, it's like me saying, I think I'll build a house for myself. I think I'll do it on the National Mall in D.C. You know what I mean? It's like that. There's some claim to that territory already.
Or trying to take a little bit of land from Texas.
Yes, exactly.
Not going to happen,
like,
bud.
Like go to Dealey Plaza and pitch your tent.
Yeah.
So all that to say, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a while, but I think it'll happen.
So I'll say this: we have a new segment we want to get into. We know we have a little bit of time, but I think we do want to get into a little bit of the policies coming out of the Biden administration. What are a couple of things that you see that you had mentioned are problematic, and what are a couple of things that you see that you like?
I like the foreign policy. I think he's responding very well to the pandemic. I think almost everything he's done regarding the pandemic has been very, very good thus far. The Trump administration, as we know, had pushed off management of response to the pandemic to the states, but we needed a federal policy. And I'm a small government guy, but so that's how that works. Negatively, I have to say I'm pro-life. I believe the child in a womb is a human being, and I do not understand the Democrats' rush to strengthen and extend abortion almost every time possible. Nancy Pelosi, when the COVID bill was voted upon last spring, snuck millions of dollars in of funding for abortion. Why? We're trying to put money in people's hands so they can survive the pandemic. And then Biden has done the same in some of his executive orders here since he's been in office, just barely 2 weeks. He's extended abortion rights. He's reversed the Mexico City policy, which put limits or actually forbade the use of federal money in expanding abortion through foreign agencies, et cetera. He already had reversed himself on the Hyde Amendment, which forbade federal spending on abortion at all. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about his policies towards the LGBTQ. I'm a Christian, so everybody who's gay, everybody who's trans, everybody who's queer, all of them know. I'll tell them straight up, I love you. But yeah, I believe what Scripture says about these things, and I'll help you however I can. I don't want to see you abused. I don't want to see you harmed. But yeah, if you're asking me spiritually what I believe, I think I've been pretty clear, and I think I believe the traditional Christian things. However, and by the way, I'm perfectly happy for trans and gay and what have you to serve in the American military. When Biden reversed some long-standing barriers regarding the military and LGBTQ, especially trans community, what he's doing is he's opening the door to the military having to handle sex change operations, sex change medication, sex change therapy. That's a pretty complicated process. And
Yeah.
it sounds like I know I'm coming close to sounding like I'm stridently anti-trans. I'm not. I believe it or not, because my wife works in the music industry, and because we live in DC and I work overseas, I've got trans friends. I work with trans diplomats. I'm not just a crazy anti, although I'm a traditional Christian. But the fact is that this restriction that Trump put in place was in part because of trans medical care laid upon the military would be hugely expensive and take the American military corps far afield from what it was designed to do. So I want to see some smarter policies there. I realize we have trans people living among us. I realize we have them as citizens. I realize we're going to have them in the military. I'm saying absolutely we should take care of them in a basic way that we take care of all people in the military. But I don't know that elective surgeries, I don't know that the long series of expensive sex change operations and medications and what have you should be laid upon the military. And I don't know that Mr. Biden has thought that through, or at least he's given no public evidence of it.
Yeah, we've got some guests upcoming, Nancy Pearcey being one from Houston Baptist University, and then we've got some contact with Abigail Schreier to talk about this stuff specifically because those two ladies have done a ton of work in it. Mm-hmm. Well, we have a segment that we have named because of you called Controlled Rowdiness, which is our last 5 questions that we ask to our guests. And our first one, so these are just rapid fire. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? So our first one is, for a vacation home, would you go to the mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
Who would win in a fight, Teddy Roosevelt or Winston Churchill?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Well, hold on. One quick clarification. Teddy Roosevelt can't use his big stick, and Winston Churchill can't speak softly.
When Teddy Roosevelt was in the White House, He boxed every day. He had a boxing ring in the White House and boxed so aggressively that he actually lost sight in one eye permanently.
Whoa.
This was a man who was in great shape. And while I revere Winston Churchill, once he was in office, he was quite the whiskey and cigar man, and I don't know that he could have run even to his own car. So I think Teddy would have won.
A lot of crumpets with Winston Churchill.
Yeah, lots of crumpets.
Yeah, baby.
All right,
yeah,
so
baby.
the movie 10 Things I Hate About You is based off of William Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew. What other work of his would you adapt for cinema, and what would the title of it be?
Oh, wow. As a comedy or just as a straight up movie?
Just whichever, whatever you think, your preference.
Wow. I loved the way that 10 Things I Hate About You adapted that. I would actually like to see a better portrayal of Henry V.
Okay.
Now, I like Kenneth Branagh, and I think his version was great, but I don't think I'd like to see it done in a contemporary. If you understand what I'm saying, is like Richard III was done in a contemporary format. I'd like to see a modern version of Henry V, and I'd like for Kenneth Branagh to produce it.
There you go.
I've been longing for that. I'm a real fan of Henry V. I'm a real fan of the Agincourt speech, the famous Agincourt speech. Band of Brothers comes from that. We few, we happy few. We band of brothers, and so I'd love to see that.
Okay, aliens have abducted you and have given you 60 seconds to tell them a story so awesome that they won't destroy the earth. What do you tell them?
I honestly, this is not me preaching, I honestly would tell them the story of Jesus coming to earth and being crucified.
Called it.
I just think it's the most amazing story. And if I could conserve the time and make it work, I would condense the teaching and the ministry, just say he's God's son come to save mankind. And I would expand, because these are aliens after all, the violence and the specifics of the crucifixion that they would be wowed by. And then they would make me their king and all would be well in the universe.
So
hold on, wait.
Okay.
In War of the Worlds, wasn't it water that killed the aliens?
I think so, yeah.
So how are you going to baptize them?
Well,
it doesn't matter to me as long as it's wet. During the Middle Ages and during times of pandemic and plague, the Catholic Church baptized in beer. So I don't care. Give me a
I'd be down.
Cabernet.
Yeah.
Give me a Diet Coke. I don't care, whatever, as long as it's wet.
Excellent.
So he was talking about the violence and stuff involved in it. I got in trouble for reading an excerpt from his book, Killing Jesus. I got some people that were very upset with how graphic I got, and they were like, "What's the point of being so graphic?" And I was like, "Well, that's what was necessary in order for you to have salvation." They're like, "Okay, we're fine. Thanks."
Well, I'm actually. I know we got to go, but I'm actually proud of you, because while I'm all for the Easter pageant kind of presentation of the crucifixion that we do in church every Easter, the fact is somewhere in some study, in some men's study, in some Sunday school class, somewhere university class, we've got to break out how graphically violent it was, because our Lord endured it. And so, okay, now I'm off my soapbox.
Yep. All right. Last one's all you.
Well, I was going to end it there, but do you want one last one?
Go.
All right. World War I or World War II, which had better gourmet food?
Are you serious?
No. This whole segment is controlled rowdiness.
Yeah,
It's
we're just trying to get
us
you to
being
laugh.
dumb.
World War I had better food, no question.
Cool.
All right. Sweet.
Stephen Mansfield, thank you so much. It is an honor every time we get to talk to you.
Man, it's great to talk to you guys. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, man. Have a good one.
Hey, good talking to you. Bye-bye.
We should
Stephen
start
Mansfield.
over.
Go ahead.
That was a blast.
Yeah. So many headlines from that.
I really enjoyed having him on talking. This was a bit of a niche episode for us because we talked a lot about the Kurds, but it wrapped well.
Mm-hmm. The Kurds are so fascinating.
The whole story is.
Yeah.
And you should read his book right here, Miracle of the Kurds by Stephen Mansfield.
Stephen Mansfield, who is a better friend than a mountain.
Yeah, and thinks World War I had better gourmet food. Yeah. I like that he looked straight at us
and
and
he would baptize aliens with Diet Coke
and beer.
What are we doing?
I have no idea.
Controlled Rowdiness is the perfect title, I gotta say.
And he just, are you serious?
Yeah.
Just asks the question, are you serious? That was great. And
No, we're not serious.
we might have to put
We're
the
dumb.
caveat especially for our Christian guests, like it can't be the gospel story, a story other than
That's a good.
other
that's a
than the
good point.
gospel, because I knew he went right.
But
to
also,
it.
I truly believe he would tell aliens
Oh,
about
no
Jesus.
doubt, no doubt, he would go
If
directly.
they had their ray guns aimed at Earth, he'd go, okay,
yeah.
listen.
Listen.
In year 0.
I thought it was a ton of fun to have him back on our first return guest.
How's that to say?
Yeah,
Having
right.
Stephen Mansfield back on.
Did it feel
I felt much more comfortable.
okay? Yeah, I was way less intimidated this time talking to
Well,
him.
as you can tell, I'm not all suited up,
right?
and neither are you.
Same. Yeah.
Although Barney Stinson would say that I should have suited up.
Yeah, probably.
That's a
But-
little quote for those who like How I Met Your Mother. It was a good show.
It was.
It was a good show. It
Like
ended
now,
dumb.
yeah,
I'm
now,
talking
now
about
it's
this
just nervous laughter.
Yeah.
Several good points that he made. I think it's interesting to hear somebody that's in the political realm that is so matter of fact down the middle, because I think we've become so polarized in the like, no, I am a Republican and so I am this way and everything that the left does is bad, or I'm a Democrat and so I'm this way, and everybody that says they're conservative, everything that they do is bad. He does a great job of not just finding consistently the good and the bad from both sides, but presenting it very evenly. When he was talking, I had this worry, like, okay, we're going to lose some of our audience immediately whenever this airs, because he has nice things to say about this administration, or negative things, or he has nice things. Let's just be honest. He has nice things to say about the Biden administration, but conversely, he has negative things to say about the Trump administration as it relates to the topic.
Yeah.
But the truth is that we should, as a whole, as a country and as individuals, we should become more comfortable with looking at things factually instead of from an emotionally charged standpoint. And
Hysterically.
and he does a great job of presenting that information.
I was telling my wife about that earlier today, that I love how he explains things, because he's not, his voice is in control, and he says, this is what I think, and this is why I believe, and he explains it, and then it tends to make sense.
Yeah, and
I don't think I'd agree with him on everything, but I'm
No.
I'm having a hard time finding a whole lot of things that I disagree with,
Yeah,
especially when he's so thoughtful about his approach.
he takes a subject that would, for lack of a better way to put it, that would trigger a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
That's
frames it.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, and he takes it and he frames it in a way where it's honest.
Mm-hmm.
It might not always be enjoyable, like we were talking about with killing Jesus. I mean, it's an honest representation of what happened, which is
Mm-hmm. It was a bloody day.
It's brutal. And you know what? Maybe we'll take some time to read it on the air sometime as a follow up, so that people can know exactly what it is that we're talking about. But it's gruesome what he's talking about. But that is what was necessary for atonement. If the wrath of God, speaking theologically, the wrath of God is poured out on Jesus, if Jesus just dies, that's not the wrath of God. The wrath of God is in everything that he had to endure, which is horrible and heartbreaking, but it's honest. And one of the sayings that I've loved the most over the last few years was one of the last things that my dad's dad said to me. And it was, I will not spare you your feelings for the truth. Like, I cannot give you something that makes you feel good if it's going to make me lie to you about what the truth actually is. And it's incredible the way that he can take and talk about things that are really difficult in a way
very charged, very
that is
polarizing.
Yeah, but it's honest, and it feels it's not condescending. It just feels like you're having a conversation with somebody who cares enough about you to make sure you know what the issues actually are and what the proper frame is. How you respond to it's up to you. But this is what it actually is. This is what he believes, and you have to take that information and do with it what you want. And his GreatMan podcast is like that. The Stephen Mansfield podcast is like that. If you look at Leading Thoughts, which is an email that he puts out every Thursday for leaders, both in business and just dads, like what it means to lead men or to be a leader just in general. It's phenomenal.
Get out of the fellowship hall.
Yeah, get out of the fellowship hall was a blast.
That's
Yeah,
what I
thankful that we
remember.
did,
Pastor,
you know?
listen to me. get your guys out of the fellowship hall. Don't put them in a circle. Not that you do that, but
No.
But it's a thing that
Yeah, and it's helped us tremendously just in the last several weeks. Having
let
or
them
the
go
last
out and
couple of months.
play tag.
Yeah, that's it. Just run around.
Can you imagine a bunch of grown men running around playing tag?
Isn't there a movie about that?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I didn't.
Starring
either.
Ed Helms. I'm aware of it.
Poor Andy.
Yeah.
Poor Andy.
Yep. Stephen Mansfield.
Stephen Mansfield. Check him out. Make sure that you look in the show notes and in the description. The GreatMan podcast, Leading Thoughts, and the Stephen Mansfield podcast.
Mansfield's Book of Manly Men.
Yep.
Killing Jesus.
The Miracle of the Kurds. Check it out. And I know he's got some other stuff that's supposed to be released here pretty soon that has to do with some of the way that the world is turning in the election and things like that. So make sure that you check out his stuff. Stephen Mansfield, thanks again for coming on. Thank you guys for listening and showing up, paying attention. Next week is Lee Hardin.
Yeah.
Lee Hardin, the comedian, on next week. So thank you guys for watching, and we will see y'all next week with Lee Hardin.